On this episode of Web at Night, we're back and we're talking about another content management system, and that is Joomla. Joomla is a content management system that not too many people know about, but a lot of people who do use it do love it. We'll explain what Joomla is, why you might want to use it, the advantages, the disadvantages, and of course, how does it stack up between WordPress and Drupal? All that and more coming up on this week's episode of Web at Night. Web at Night is brought to you by Zygen Hosting, the hosting gateway. Zygen offers VPS hosting, web hosting, IRC-V hosting, Shell, BNC, and more. For more information, visit ZygenHosting.com and use the offer code WebAtNight at checkout to save 20% off your order. And by OWC, Otherworld Computing, your one-stop shop for all things iOS and Mac. From a wide variety of accessories for your iOS devices to RAM and hard drive upgrades to your Mac, OWC has it all. Visit macsales.com to learn more. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Web at Night. It's good to be back. I was a little under the weather last week. Still am kind of fighting this cold flu thing, but we're back, and this week we're talking about Joomla. We talked about WordPress, we talked about Drupal. We're continuing our discussion of content management systems, and this week it's going to be Joomla. Joining me is the man who knows more about this stuff than I do, Mr. Ryan Becker. Ryan, how you doing today? Thanks so much for being on.
Yeah, it's good that you're finally feeling better, and I'm excited to talk about Joomla because there is a lot of potential for Joomla, and there's a lot of specific use cases that I'm going to show off, and I think that you'll enjoy.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this. We were talking, before the pre-show. I talked to Ryan a little bit during the week, and I told him before that, Joomla is something that I really don't know that much about. I honestly don't know. I know a little bit about it just because, WordPress is something we've talked about before that I've used a lot. Drupal is something that I've known a little bit about and a little bit more about, the backend and everything. But Joomla is something that someone had told me about a couple of years ago that I should be using, and I just never did. And I did a little bit of research about Joomla, and I still don't know too much, but Ryan knows about it, and we're going to be talking about it today. So I guess the first thing to talk about is, Joomla. It's another content management system. If you don't know what it is, we're kind of continuing our discussion. A content management system is essentially an easy-to-use software solution that you can install on your web hosting, your web server that lets you manage your content. So pages, posts, different things like that. So Ryan is a little bit more about Joomla and more familiar about this than I am. Can you explain a little bit about what exactly is Joomla?
Okay, so we've mentioned before that we had the use cases for WordPress, where WordPress is meant for a blogging platform. It's used by a lot of news sites. We also talked about Joomla or Drupal, how it's good for static content. Joomla is kind of a mix between WordPress and Drupal. It's good in both cases. It's good either for using, either for being static content, or it's really good, and this is a feature. It actually has a lot of features that WordPress lacks by default that makes it a better choice for news sites.
Right, I think that's something really important to point out that, obviously everything's going to be different. We're going to have different things, and I'll get my screen grab up in a second so I can kind of show you what Joomla is. But Joomla is essentially, again, another content management system, and it's going to be, again, we talk about this a lot, for different use cases. I just am going to pull up the rundown here, and I have a couple of things. This is off a Joomla website about what Joomla is and what Joomla can do. According to Joomla, it's good for corporate websites or portals. It's good for e-commerce and online retailers, which I'm interested to see what their backend is going to be for that. It's good for personal. They say it's good for personal and family homepages, as well as community-based sites and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to ask Ryan about this because we talked about this before. So I had asked Ryan this question about blogging, how WordPress bread and butter is blogging. Drupal can do blogging, but it's not meant to do blogging. Ryan, where does Joomla fall in this whole blogging thing? Would you even consider Joomla for a blogging platform?
For a blogging platform, not really, only because Joomla is a very, very involved, very advanced management system. You have to know what you're doing when you're using something like Joomla. It's not meant for a beginner. So a lot of news websites have guest writers, and they give them access to log into their WordPress backend as an author and create content and everything. Now, Joomla has the same style or same kind of permissions that you can use and everything, but it's not specifically meant for maybe blogging use so much as it is like community news. And when we get to it, I have some good examples of why Joomla is better for this rather than blogging. So yeah, Joomla, if you're going to consider Joomla a blogging platform at all, then look at it in terms of WordPress MU because that's what it is. It's not really a blog for one user per se. It's more, you have a lot of users and they're all contributing content. So that's the same style as WordPress MU basically, and that's what you need to look at Joomla as.
And you make a good point too, because that's really interesting that a lot of people, we talked about WordPress and Drupal. Maybe this person's niche is not really blogging. They're really looking to do a website for their community, maybe their town. Maybe they're looking to do something like a school activity. This is where kind of Joomla really kind of comes in handy. We kind of see their use cases here. Joomla doesn't really do a totally good job. I'll go to the website here, and I was kind of reading a little bit about what is Joomla according to the Joomla folks themselves. And they just kind of give this description about if I can find the shot here, which one it is. They talk a little bit about what Joomla is. Like we said, they talk about how it's good for corporate websites and portals, for small business websites, and we'll get into a little later about who uses Joomla. But I guess the next step is, so you're gonna go with Joomla. Ryan, can you talk a little bit about, we know kind of what Joomla is. So what are the main features that someone would use to draw them into Joomla? What's the main thing that you're going to be looking for? Well, I guess what are the advantages of Joomla?
Okay, so Joomla has, like I mentioned before, it's got a lot of advanced features that WordPress maybe doesn't have. And some of the things, well, I'll show you here. Let's see if I can do this without losing my video and screwing you up. Yes, okay. Okay, there we go. And so right now I'm looking at the article manager, and the article manager, sorry, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. The way Joomla categorizes content is by articles. Everything is an article. There's no differentiation between posts and pages. It is articles. So this here, all these three here, if I go to one of these links in the site, it's an article. And they can all be managed from here. So if we go back and we look at home and we look at the beginner's article, we can find this in here, and it's right here. We can click on this. And this is going to bring us into the edit screen. And there's a lot of advanced things that you can do. So you can see I installed sample data for this site just so I wouldn't have to create anything, but there's a bunch of categories. You write your post basically down here, and this red bar you can click, and you can click insert read more, and what happens is that will give you this read more link right here. So that's one of the features. The other thing is, if you're logged in as a user with appropriate permissions, you can edit posts in line from the main website.
Oh, that's nice.
You don't have to go to your administration interface. It'll let you edit it right here. It doesn't give you all of the options that the administration interface would, but it gives you enough. So if we look over here, we can pick which user we want this article to be created by. Right now, I'm the only user in there, but created by alias, it's how you want your name to be displayed. You can pick the created date, and here's where Joomla kind of excels in news sites for communities and stuff. You can pick start and end publishing dates.
Oh, that's nice.
You can write these articles in advance, and you can set it. Okay, say you have an event going on for the weekend, but you already have information for it. So you can write this article, say on Wednesday, have it go live Saturday morning, and go down Sunday night.
Well, that's very nice.
And you don't have to do anything. And I've got a bunch of article options in here, and these can all be set as global settings, but you can pick exactly what gets displayed with each of your articles. You can pick if you want to show the title, you can have link time. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that you can show. And the other thing too is Joomla is very good about this. And some of these things, it pops up a little tooltip to show you what each thing does. It shows you how it works. So if you look at this one, link category is set to yes and show category is set to show. The category title will link to a layout showing articles in that category. So it shows you exactly what everything does.
That looks like really nice, like a solution for like a community newspaper. That seems like, a really nice thing that, you wouldn't necessarily get in Drupal and WordPress. And I just want to point out for everyone listening on audio, It's really an advantage to watch the video version of this just because Ryan is showing off the actual Joomla interface, but we'll try to do our best to describe it for everyone as best as we can. But that's a really big plus is, I mean, right off the bat, community newspaper seems like Joomla would be something really nice. I'm just looking off of a slideshow that was made by someone here online that says the advantages and disadvantages of Joomla here. They point out it's a free and open source system, which is just like WordPress and Drupal, which is the same. Full-fledged content management system. They say it's more powerful and robust than WordPress. We'll talk a little bit about that. There's an admin out-of-the-box user management, search polls. It says admin is much more than just articles. It's SEO friendly, deep-level integration. What do you think about this stuff, Ryan? Would you agree that it's more robust and powerful than WordPress right out of the box?
In some degrees, yes, I will say that mostly because when you're dealing with Joomla, I'm really driving this point home that there's a lot of advanced options you can use with it, and there is a lot of back-end things you can do to improve your site. And Joomla, unlike WordPress, is not foolproof. It's not what am I trying to say? I'm trying to think of what I'm looking for. It's possible to break it basically. It's not idiot proof. So if you go in and delete something that you needed, or if you mess something up with one of the core files, then your website might go down. So this is why I'm saying that it's really important that you know what you're doing when you're running a Joomla website. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with Joomla, but on the same token, there's a lot that can go right. So I'm just showing this here. I know I'm kind of moving the window around. It's confusing it, but if we look up here, we've got our user managers. We've got menus. Now here's the thing: Joomla bases a lot of things on menu. It calls this a menu. This is a menu. This is a menu. This is a menu. I mean, it's all in menus, and they're all editable. So if we go to the menu manager, we can see what modules are linked to it. And Joomla, I've noticed Joomla works heavily on this modules thing. And modules, I mentioned nodes with Drupal last week, and Joomla modules are basically like Drupal nodes, in the fact that they're customizable as to what you put on them. But you can see, if you look in the modules link, you can see, this registered in position 7 means that only registered users will see this, and it's position 7 on the page relevant to everything else. So I'm going off of something, but this could be like position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or whatever is down here. If you go in to edit one of these, you pick the ordering. We see the access for your profile is registered, but we see the access for submit an article and submit a web link is special, which means it will only show it if your user has permission to view that. So if you were a registered user but you didn't have an access to create articles, this submit an article would not show up because even though you're registered, it's set to special permissions.
Interesting.
And you can completely take something out of the menu right here. So if you see right now in my user menu, I've got your profile, submit an article, and submit a web link. If I hit disable on submit an article, we see it turns to a red. And if I reload this page, submit an article has disappeared because it's been disabled.
Very interesting.
I mentioned too that Joomla works heavily on articles. So if you look at this featured column here, you see most of these are gray circle. This one has a blue star. Featured means that it's shown on the front page of the website. So you see you've got this beginner articles right here. If I take featured off of that beginner article and reload the page, it's gone. Now, the content still exists on the site because it's still published.
Right.
And you can see it's published and current, but it's not available on your homepage. And this is something that Drupal can do too. But in Joomla, it's more geared for things like these.
Right. So besides all this stuff, what about let's talk about plugins. We know that Drupal and WordPress both have some kind of plugin base. WordPress is highly customizable with plugins and widgets and stuff. Is there a Joomla equivalent to something like that?
This is where it gets confusing with Joomla, because in my extension menu, if you look, I've got extension manager, but I've also got module manager and plugin manager. And they all do different things. So the extension manager is kind of The extension manager is kind of the master that controls all of these submenus. You can install something, you can update if you have anything that's out of date, you can manage all your stuff that's installed, whatever. Like you can see this, some of these are protected, they can't be disabled, which means they have the padlock here. Some of these are disabled. You've got all these options. Um, Now, if we look, we can discover. Discover is basically there's no easy way to install. Uh, this is not what I'm trying to say. Discover is not like WordPress is searching for plugins. It's for looking for plugins that might be in a certain directory on your server.
Right.
So if we go to the module manager here, we can see modules are all about content. Let's see if I can do this. So these are all relating to content here. That's what modules do. So you can see, archived, latest, most read, feed display, news slide. You've got all this stuff, and this is all content stuff. This is all this does. Plugin manager is the equivalent basically to WordPress's extensions. And you can see they have got different types. You've got these three authentication modules here. You've got caption modules, you've got content plugins, you've got editor plugins, you've got button plugins. And these basically control what is displayed on your site. So a lot of this stuff is here, but it's not enabled by default because maybe not every website needs it. But you can pick, what's needed and what's not. And template manager is exactly the same as WordPress's template manager. You pick what site you want it to use, and you can have the thing with Joomla is that it lets you pick different administrator templates too. So if you wanted your administration interface to look different, you could do that. So I'm switching this over here. So I've switched this to the Hathor, and it completely changes the way it looks. Same interface, but different theme. Basically the same that WordPress allows you to do with the front end themes.
Interesting. Now, that's another thing is themes. Now, before I get into themes real quick, I have this video here. This is on the Joomla website. I was watching this yesterday, and I just thought it was interesting to pull up. If I can pull it up here. It was interesting because they kind of remarked on something that kind of caught me off guard, was that they only had 4,000 plugins. And I'm going to try to go in here. This was their little promo video that if you go to Joomla.com, it's on the front page. They talk about how it's community driven and blah, blah, blah. But where is it? They have it somewhere in here. They say they only have 4,000 plugins. And that kind of struck me as odd because 4,000 in a sense kind of seems like a lot, but it seems like WordPress must have tens of thousands. Of course, I'm not going to be able to find it here. Here it is. So they say they have 9,400 extensions, which is what Ryan was just talking about. I have to ask Ryan, but compared to the grand scheme of things, doesn't WordPress have like 50,000, or maybe I'm just going over where 9,400 doesn't seem like that much?
It's not, and you have to consider this too. You have to consider what I just said with extensions kind of being the broad term that encompasses plugins, modules, and themes. It's not specific pinpointed like WordPress modules are, and I don't know. I don't know if it might be in this infographic I have here about the number of WordPress plugins. I'm gonna look real quick while I keep talking, but yeah, that's talking about everything. That's
so 9,400 covers all what WordPress would consider plugins, all the widgets, even the themes. 9,400. Yes. That, see, for me, that just seems a little limiting.
Right. I'm looking at this too. I'm looking at this infographic right here. It says in an average week, users of the site switch themes over 225,000 times, with more than 100 different themes to pick from, those are just themes that are available from WordPress directly. This doesn't even count all of the themes that may be made available by other developers, because there are thousands of them. Okay, here we go. So this is exactly what I'm looking for right here. We're talking about extensions in Joomla as kind of that broad encompassing, and we want to look at plugins here. So WordPress says there are 19,000 plus plugins.
Wow.
Just plugins, not counting widgets or themes or anything.
Right.
Freely available in the plugin directory. Altogether, these plugins have been downloaded 285 million times.
Wow.
Or almost one download for every person in the United States.
Wow.
So WordPress. I don't know which one's been around longer, but WordPress definitely has a greater community and a great developing community at that. And WordPress is very extensible. It's open source, like I mentioned before, and it's very popular. So people want to develop for it.
And that's a good point. That's kind of funny too because we talked about WordPress. If you haven't seen that episode, go back and watch it. But we talked about the community drivenness of it, how there's all these support groups and everything for it. Joomla also boasts that a lot. And one of the main things they tout is that we're all community driven. There's this such a powerful community behind this. But at the end of the day, when I'm looking for some kind of content management system for my website, when I see the fact that there's only 9,400 themes, plugins, everything, where compared to WordPress, and Ryan showing it off here where there's 19,000 plugins by itself,
This is something else that I'm looking at.
that's kind of a little something that's going to kind of take me back a little bit now. And
Yeah, let's see.
so Ryan's looking at an infographic here. We'll talk about
Here it is.
we can talk about it now. I asked Ryan before the show. We were just kind of going back and forth, and because in this Joomla video here, their little promo, they say that 2% of the 2% of websites, all the websites in the world, run Joomla. And I said, it's funny that they boast that because 2% kind of seems, I mean, I guess out of all the websites, 2% is a lot, but kind of seems low. So I asked Ryan, what do you think the percentages of who uses WordPress, who uses Joomla, and et cetera? And Ryan found this infographic here. So Ryan, you want to explain a little bit about this infographic and what it's kind of showing off?
Right, so this is what it's talking about. This is talking about market share of these three content systems we've discussed: WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal, the three most popular. It's showing you, if you can see here, WordPress has 53.8% of the market share. Now, Joomla's site was incorrect in what it said. It actually holds 9.2% of the market share, but I don't believe this is on a worldwide scale. I believe this is more looking at these two reasons, the United Kingdom and the United States, and
Right.
Drupal has a 6.7% hold, and there's a 30.3% hold on the others. But if you look in the UK, WordPress is 10 times as big as Drupal and Joomla.
Wow.
And according to visits to .org sites, WordPress is 1.4 million hits. Drupal is 147,000 and Drupal is 130,000.
Wow.
And in the United States, this is where these numbers really
Oh,
stand
yeah.
out. 2.4 million hits for WordPress, 107,000 for Drupal, and only 60,000 for Joomla. So it is a big difference.
Yeah, for all you guys listening on audio, we're looking at an infographic here of just we have the different colors here in WordPress. Just in the United States, it's like 75%. It just swallows up the competition almost entirely. And
It's more than that. It's more like 90%.
right. And the UK, it's a little bit more, a little bit less. But even worldwide, I gotta say, WordPress is it's very, very widely well known. And Joomla's certainly, not saying that Joomla's bad, but when you look at market share, Joomla certainly, and both Drupal and Joomla have a long way to go before they're ever going to become somewhat close to WordPress. So that's something very interesting. So we talked a little about features. We talked about this. Now let's not get all afraid here and limited. Ryan, let's talk a little bit about who is Joomla geared to. And this is something that when I was going through the rundown and making the doc, I didn't really know what to do because I'm not sure exactly who Joomla is driven to and who's it's geared to. Now, as Ryan just showed off with the community, the posting, like you can add a post and have it scheduled to go up and go down at a certain date and time. That seems like it's great for like a community newspaper, maybe a school newspaper. It seems great that you could have a team on there. You could have different people doing different things. That seems great. But in the overall scheme of things, if I'm a business looking to do a website or a family website or a company, am I going to use Joomla, or who is Joomla actually geared to?
I mean, Joomla has a very wide range of who they're geared to, and they pride themselves with this on their website too. We're looking. We had this up earlier. We're looking at websites using Joomla. We've got, social networking, restaurants, educationals, financial institutions, magazines. I really think Drupal is geared towards the communities. I'm just looking here. I'm looking at how will Joomla help me, and it says it's designed to be easy to install and easy to set up, even if you're not an advanced user. I don't. I wanna. I mean, I don't want to sound mean, but that's kind of not true in my experience. Because if you're using something like Joomla, you really have to know what you're doing.
Right, and that's a really good, important case to make. We'll talk a little bit later about getting started, but you really want something that's going to be kind of has really good documentation. It's going to be good out of the box. And Ryan's experience, even before the show, kind of getting things going and doing things, it kind of seems like it's one of those things where it's a setting is buried inside of a menu, which is inside of another menu, which just kind of seems a little bit like a mess.
It is a little bit of a mess. Now look here, I want to go global config. I think this is what I want. Let me just look at, okay, let me switch to my screen again. Okay, so Joomla is highly configurable, and this is one of the things, if you need customization and you need really good flexibility, Joomla is good for this. And I'm not saying WordPress is not, but I think Joomla does it better if you're looking for something specific. Now, Joomla says it has 9,400 extensions, but the thing with WordPress you have to keep in mind is with WordPress, sometimes there are a lot of extensions that do the same thing.
Yes.
There's a lot of the extensions that, although they may be in there, they're not very popular or they don't do a good job.
Right.
With Joomla extensions, or not, I shouldn't say that, with Joomla plugins, it's down to earth. It's what you need. They're not beating around the bush and playing. We're just looking here. There is an SEO settings section for it. So you've got, search engine settings, adding things to URLs. You can include the site name and the page titles, that's good for results. You've got metadata settings, which can be set on everything. You've got, you've got caching right here built in. You've got, server information, permission. This is the permission area here. This is custom stuff right here. But there's a lot of permission stuff that you can do with Joomla. And I mentioned last week when we were talking about Drupal that WordPress really doesn't have any sort of permission management per se.
Right.
You've got your 5 or 6 defined roles. Now this one allows you to, I think you can do a lot with your users, and you can go into, you've got user groups here, and they can be nested, and you can have these lower level groups inherit permissions from the upper level groups or the other way around, and you've got access levels that you can look at here. There's a lot of access levels they have here. So I mentioned the special group, which is used in specialty cases. You've got, and there's a bunch of stuff that you can use. But I'm looking, I'll bring up the plugin manager again, and you see all of these plugins are really specific in what they do. So if you're looking for something specific, it's most likely that it has it. You're not going to have to search through a big database to try and find it. You're not going to have to play with 5 different plugins before you find the one that's right for you, whatever.
Right, that seems like it's all about the differences in between all the different content management systems. And I guess that's one good thing. I mean, you have the advantages and disadvantages of all of them. Ryan talked a little bit about who uses Joomla. If you wanted to know, we talked about WordPress has some very high-profile clients. Drupal also has some very high-profile clients. Does Joomla have very high-profile, or does it have any high-profile clients? Well, it kind of does. I'll show it off here. This is according to Joomla themselves. They say Harvard University uses Joomla, as well as, I'll go down here. A lot of it is schools. The Alliance of Catholic Education, the University of Notre Dame uses it. Joomla itself uses Joomla, and I was talking to Ryan. I'm like, that's kind of a stupid thing to put on their list. Me and Ryan were joking. What's the Joomla website going to run? WordPress? It's just kind of stupid that they include that on their website. I guess they're showing off that they can. I'm not exactly sure why they even included it on their list. It kind of seems a little ridiculous. We have, here we go, a newspaper. This is something that we talked about a little bit earlier as would be a very good use case, and this is one right here. The Hill, which is looks like an online newspaper. We have the Linux website they say uses Joomla, which is very interesting. Let's see here. The Wire, which looks like another, or It Wire, looks like another kind of magazine-style website. Guggenheim.
It's IT Wire, actually. This
there we go.
Technical information, basically.
Looks kind of magazine-ish.
Kinda. It's a news site.
Right. And then I'm Guggenheim. I'm not going to go on too much, but essentially it kind of is a bit of a diverse range of customers who use Joomla. A lot of schools, I guess, do, but I don't know. At least, from what I saw from Ryan, the configuration, and I, not to be, put Joomla down or anybody down, but, even Drupal looked like a lot. When we were talking 2 weeks ago about Drupal and I, explain that that's a lot. Joomla just seems like everything you want to do just seems like it's like 10 times harder to do. It just seems like there's more settings and more things to do. And I guess, Ryan, you could talk about this because Ryan has actually used this in a production site. Compared to WordPress and Drupal, when you want to do kind of the same thing, does it really take more steps to do it, or am I just saying things differently?
If you're a new user to Joomla, then it might seem a little bit daunting at first, but once you learn the Joomla menu structure, you'll realize that it's very, very easy the way everything is organized. I mean,
Okay.
everything is broken down exactly the way you need it to be. So is once you get the thing with Joomla, Joomla actually has a very good beginner tutorial that takes you through everything you need to know to run a Joomla website. But I keep going back to this menu system, and it's really good. Because I mean, if you look, I mean, everything is defined. You've got a menu for users, a menu for content, and as long as you know what everything does, you can find exactly what you're looking for like that.
Hmm.
And it's right there. So if I wanted to go find user permissions, I know it's in the users menu, access levels, and access levels. That's what I want. And that's where I want to go, or user groups. And I can set all my user group permissions in here. But yeah,
Yeah, so I guess
it's
it just takes time to learn the different content management system.
right, sure.
So okay, so let's move on a little bit more. Before we take our break here, security. We talked about this with Drupal and WordPress. Joomla security. How secure is it? How does it stack up?
Well, in terms of like password security and how it's resilient to compromise, I don't know. But I do want to talk about I want to talk about like permission levels. Like I've been mentioning that a lot, the
Right.
different permission levels that it has. I'm going back, yes, I'm going back into this again, but I really want to drive this home that you can pick. I've mentioned before, WordPress doesn't have very many options for configuration.
Right.
Joomla does. You can assign people to these groups, and I'm thinking I can't remember how this is done. I think this is where it is. Yes, this is what I'm looking for. Okay. So so we want to restrict someone's permission to the article manager. Every section in here has an options menu. Every place on here has an options button. So this is the main screen that you get when you log in. There's a bunch of quick links here, and
It does look
if we
nice.
look,
That does look pretty easy to navigate.
yeah, I mean, okay, global configuration isn't going to have options because only administrators can have access to that. But so if let's go into the article manager, and I'm going to bring up the options for the article manager. If we look, we can here. Remember when we were talking about the article editing and how a bunch of this stuff was inherited or default? This is where you set it. You set it in this options menu right here. You can pick the defaults for all of these options, and it's got the same tooltips that the edit menu had. So you can set your defaults here and then override it on an article per article basis. If we want to go into our editing layout, we've got a bunch of options that we can set here. This stuff is, this is basically all setting default stuff for these, but permissions is what I want to look at here. So say you've got a new user group. So we've got registered, author, editor, and publisher. And they go down the list in terms of what their actual are. Public is obviously the top level. Then you've got your manager, registered, and super users. But say you had authors that you only want them to be able to create content. So you'd give them access to create and edit own, but you would not give them permissions to configure it, to access admin, delete, edit, or edit others.
Wow, that is very nice. That is actually a really nice wide variety of options that you do
And
get.
right, and if we switch to editor, we can see they get more permissions. They can create, they can edit any article, and they can edit own. Now, edit state is talking about published or unpublished, featured and unfeatured. If we go into a publisher, they now have access to edit state, and we can say, okay, this is going to be allowed. They're allowed to publish articles, unpublished articles, set featured or not. If we want to, we could create a new kind of say content master role and we could give them access to the delete role, but by default, only the super user has access to delete. Now, the super user has permissions to everything. You can't change that. You can't lock that out. But you could create, other rules that say, okay, we can do this, but not this. Joomla, it really prides itself on not having to delete anything. It's more, okay, you want this shown, then publish this. When you're done, unpublish it. Don't delete it. And there is a trash. Oh, hush. Okay, so we can say, if I wanted to say, I'm just going to take the beginners, for example, and hit trash. There's no easy way to delete, basically. So it's hidden from here, but it still exists in the site. Um, the other thing too is Joomla is very good about this. If you are editing something, it locks it, so another user cannot edit it. So
Oh, that's
say I
nice.
go, I'm gonna bring up. Oh, I don't remember how to get to trash. I really don't remember how. It's been a while since I've done this. I know it shows up somewhere. Select status trashed. I'm just gonna bring this back because I wanna work on this. Publish. I wanna show you what I mean with the locking feature. Come on. Okay. So I'm gonna open beginners here. Now you'll notice up here, once this loads the menu bar, my menu bar has become locked out because if I leave this page, it's going to hold a lock on it. Now you see I've got save, save and close, save and new, save as copy, and close. In a Joomla site, you should never directly close the page you're working
Hmm.
on unless it's a master page. There's a close button here for a reason. So I'm just gonna go back real quick and I'm gonna bring up the main administration interface again. And we're gonna see if we go to article manager, beginners. Sorry, so you've got this lock here. You got this
Right.
lock icon, and it says it's checked in by the super user. And that's the person that's editing. If we go to it, it'll allow you to override the lock and save it, but whatever. Now, if I go here and I hit close without making any changes, and I refresh this, now the lock is released because it was closed properly.
Hmm.
But it's a security feature to say, hey, somebody's got this open, don't touch it. And it'll let you, and of course, if the administrator wanted to, or you messed up, you could pick it and you could hit check-in, or the administrator can go to maintenance and do a global check-in, which checks in everything that's checked out. But this is one of the big things. You can't edit, well, you shouldn't edit something that somebody's working on, and that the permissions are a really, really, really big thing.
That is really nice, and I guess Ryan's driving it home, and it really does make sense if you're really someone like we said who's looking to do this kind of like a community newspaper, or I just keep coming back to I think this would be great for like a school newspaper, someone who wants to do something in a small scale form. This seems like it would work out really really well, and that permissions thing. Try being a web manager for someone, and you'll kind of realize how big permissions are because I've done school web management, and it's really hard to restrict one person to do one thing and to another. And it'd be really nice to have some of those things that Joomla does bring to the table, which is really nice. We're gonna take
Yeah, it really does.
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you. I just
good.
want to say one more thing. I know I've mentioned before, WordPress doesn't have this customizability, but I don't know if functionality like this is available in a plugin or not. I haven't checked. There may be a plugin that allows WordPress to operate like this, but it's good to have something like this out of the box, definitely.
Right, definitely. It's always good to have choices. WordPress has definitely its fan base, and Drupal has its fan base, but it's nice to have competition. Competition definitely helps WordPress and Drupal get better. We're going to take a quick break real quick and give a nice shout out to our sponsors. Ryan's going to talk a little bit about one of our great ones, and that's going to be Zygen Hosting.
All right, Web at Night would like to take a minute to thank our sponsor for this show, Zygen Hosting. Zygen Hosting is an established web and VPS hosting provider that's been in business since August of 2008. With fast service and friendly staff, the customer always comes first. Web at Night listeners receive a special 20% discount on their already low-priced web and VPS hosting packages and domain registrations using the promo code Web at Night. Please note that this code does not apply to BNC hosting, shell hosting, IRCD hosting, product upgrades, or product add-ons. We now return to the show.
That's awesome. ZygenHosting.com. If you haven't heard about them, go check it out. They have great rates. They have also everything, too, man. They have all different kinds of servers and everything. And this is a great thing, too. Thank them as well, because we talk about all this stuff. And maybe, you're looking to take that next step. You want to set up a website. You hear about Joomla. Hey, why not try a Joomla website? Zygen Hosting. Go check them out and use the coupon code when you're going and checking out and get 20% off, which is kind of cool. And I also want to give a little shout out to OWC Otherworld Computing. They do all kinds of cool accessories, and I have with me here one of those cool accessories. If I can do this, I have here. They sent me an iPad podium. Oh, we just dropped Ryan here. Let me go ahead and get him back here. We love Skype here. So as I get Ryan pulled back on the line here, I just want to talk about this cool little podium. I'm going to have my review up on Robust Tech and on the YouTube page about this, but it's kind of cool. It's fully adjustable. You know, it's nice that I can have this podium here for the iPad, not just for presentation, but just for my own, just to have it off this desk to be able to have my soundboard application on here if I want to, you know, watch TV and do stuff. It's really kind of nice to have it here. It's nice. It's adjustable. I have it kind of sitting down here. It's really cool. It's a nice little podium. I believe it's called the Grip Stand Podium, grip-based podium. I'm not sure. I need to look at that, but it's owc.com. Check it out. My full review will be on Robust Tech. I have a nice little video and everything that'll be looping here, but that's OWC, iPod, iPhone, Mac accessories. Really cool. It's Otherworld Computing, macsales.com. We're going to go and attempt to get Ryan back here. All right, I got Ryan back here, and we're going to be talking about now how to get started with Joomla. So we talked about Joomla. We went through all the paces about it, you know, what it does, the advantages, the disadvantages, how it stacks up. So let's talk about now getting started. So, Ryan, I'm ready to start my Joomla website. Where do I begin, or how do I even begin?
Okay, so Joomla, unlike WordPress.com, I don't think Joomla has an equivalent. Now there are hosters which provide it, but Joomla itself does not provide hosting on its own. So you'd either need to, you know, install it on your own web server, or you'd need to find a host that provides an install service for you, like Zygen will. But yeah, it depends on what you want to do. If you're someone who's kind of new, not really sure what to do, then it may be worth going with a web host that has an auto installer that can actually set up your site for you.
Right, right.
Otherwise, you have to download it and you have to install it yourself. And the install process is a little more involved than the one-click WordPress install, basically.
Now, does something we've talked about before, XAMPP, XAMPP, would this be an instance where would XAMPP work with the Joomla install?
Sure, it would have no problems with it.
Now, and that's kind of thing too. We keep coming back to this. That's where I think that kind of WordPress really excels. That's one key thing that's nice. That someone's interested in looking into WordPress and looking to get started. You could say, hey, just go to WordPress.com, sign up for a free blog, and kind of get started. That's really nice, and that's something that Drupal doesn't have, Joomla doesn't have. That's one thing that would be nice, some kind of demo. But there is a
they don't have the hosting side of it, but there are demos available on each site. At least on Joomla's site, there's a big demo button at the top of the screen.
Oh, interesting. All right. I also have pulled up here. I'll show off to people as well. Documentation. Ryan talked about before how there is some documentation. I lost that here, but anyways, it's on the Joomla website. I'll head over here. We'll see what's on their page here. The Joomla website is very accessible here. We'll do a quick search here for Joomla. Do it here, so you can kind of see what it looks like. There's that video there, and they kind of have here. Oh, there it is. There it is. Actually, you're right. Yeah, demo. I should have tried that out. I forgot about this. I did this yesterday. So there's a Joomla. That's really nice. So they let you see 3.1, 2.5. You could do a front end view or a back end view. So I can hit back end view here and take a look. And it looks like.
And if you is it giving you an error?
I'd have looks like the Joomla website has a little error. Let's go back and try the other one.
Oh, wait, hang on. Yeah, the site's not working. And if you look on the side of that page, though, you can sign up for a free 30-day demo.
Oh wow, that is nice. Yeah.
So it's not hosting. You can't continue. I don't believe that it will let you continue that, but you can sign up for a demo and at least get started. So
that is a nice option. At least you have something. And I didn't even notice that. I forgot about that. Yeah. So there's a demo. If it works, you can go try it out. But
it's not working.
That's very interesting. Sorry, Joomla. So we're wrapping things up here. We talked about this before, so let's kind of get back to it. We'll kind of wrap things up. You're coming back to this. We've discussed all three now. WordPress. Oh, as I hit my microphone. WordPress, Joomla, Drupal. At least as I know, probably the three most popular content management systems on the web. Let's break this down. Who's it geared towards? What is, if you're going between them, which one should you go for? Ryan, do you want to discuss just the different use cases for them again? Just kind of wrapping things up about who needs who, or who needs what?
Yeah, sure. Well, I know we've talked about this before. We've talked about it, the past two episodes when we were talking about other content management system, what it's geared for. If you're looking to start a blog for family information and family WordPress, if you're looking for a site that maybe doesn't have content that changes that often, but you still want extensibility or maybe some basic blogging informed functionality, Drupal. Now, if you're going to be running something like a news site or something with content that's changing a lot, you need the functionality of all the settings that Joomla offers, the published dates, the unpublishes, all that. Then go with Joomla, and it really depends. It really depends on what you're going to be doing, and if you're not sure, you can always contact me directly. With your use case. My email is ryan@zygenhosting.com. That's Ryan at xygen hosting.com. Just email me, let me know what your use case is, and I can kind of point you in the right direction for what you're going. But that's kind of the broad overview
Yeah,
of it, at least.
awesome, very nice overview. So, like Ryan said, we've been talking about this. If you're interested in, maybe you heard something like, that WordPress, that sure does sound kind of interesting. Maybe I should take a look at that. Or Drupal, what is about that? We've had episodes on these. robustech.com/WAN is where you can find all the episodes. We have iTunes video and audio feeds are available for the show. It's also on YouTube, youtube.com. It's very long. youtube.com/RobIsTechNetwork. Someone has Robust Tech. I couldn't get it, but Robust Tech Network, or just go to the website, robusttech.com. Links are there, but we have the full shows available. I try to edit them just a couple hours after and get them up. They're all available, and you can go and do all that we've talked about. Getting started with websites. We've talked about the different kind of hosting. Check it out, robusttech.com/WAN. We have now 7 episodes, 7 wonderful episodes of great content. And we'll be coming back next week with something even more interesting. We'll talk about and see what we want to talk about. But Ryan, thanks so much for being on again. Is there anything you want to say, just kind of wrapping up about Joomla? Anything you want to say?
No, I think I just want to remember the main points about customizability, about security, and what it's geared towards.
Right, and that's definitely great. Joomla.com. If you want to check out more about that, again, check out our the different episodes on the website, robistech.com. Thank you guys so much for listening, for viewing this on the video. We really appreciate it. Ryan, thanks so much for being on. Without Ryan, I would not be able to do this show because I don't know anything about Joomla, and now I know more. And thanks to his great on-screen instructions, that's awesome too. And again, if you're listening to this on the audio version, I know the audio is great, but video is even better because you get to see more of this. So robustech.com.
Yep, you get to see everything we're talking about, and you can actually see all the demos that I'm doing. This will be especially helpful, I think, in the few upcoming episodes that we'll be doing in the future.
Right. We'll have another episode coming back next week where we continue our discussion of the world of websites, web hosting, content management systems, all that and more next week on another episode of Web at Night. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and we'll see you guys next week.